Good afternoon, everyone. We are recording here on Friday afternoon, evening, depending upon what part of the U.S. you are in. We are here with Papy this week, and we're going to be talking about the Jags and Chiefs game. We're also going to be talking about some of our favorite plays. We were just talking about some teaser opportunities for some props and some bets, and we're just going to cover a few things while we got you here. And I'm glad you got to write up this game this week. I always like your perspective. You
Thanks.
have you have a unique take. I think it's one of the things we have that does well is not everybody's coming from the same group think process, right?
Mhm.
Core principles are there and aligned, and I think that's what one of the things 1 week does well is we all come from that base, but having the different ability to look at things different ways gets me to look at stuff. We misconnected for those last week that were looking for this. Sorry, with the time change and with daylight savings, and we mixed time, so that was on us, and we apologize for that. And again, if you guys are just listening to this on podcast, know that we're also streaming this. You can go watch it on YouTube if you're not afraid to see two pretty faces. And and with that, we're gonna dive right in. I want to start on the Jags side first, right? Because everybody wants to talk about the Chiefs and what they've turned into and where they're going to go. But I think there's some cool leverage opportunity here with the Jags and how to play this. And you talk about that a little bit in there. So I don't want to steal your thunder, and I'm going to let you lead right into it.
Yeah, so this is an interesting game. I'm glad I got to write this one up because I think it's going to be a heavy focus of my rosters this week. And it's interesting because, the Chiefs, obviously, they have a high team total. The game has a high total. People are going to be looking at them. But outside of Mahomes and Kels, who are both priced, at the top of the slate for their positions, and, with this slate being a slate where there's not a ton of obvious value, playing, Mahomes and Kels really restricts what you can do. So there's a good chance they're even going to be under-owned. And then you look at the Jaguars side of the ball and you say, okay, well, who's going to be played over here? I have three receivers, the Joneses and Kirk. It really, you feel like any of them could hit, although Kirk is clearly a superior to hit out of the three of them. You feel like any of them could hit in the right environment. You have Evan Ingram haunts my steps, man. Like, I just have bad dreams about Evan Ingram in years past. Like, I don't know how many times I'm going to play Evan Ingram and then be sitting here and it's, 4:00 and I'm looking at myself and he has 3 points. I did it last week on my team that got in the top 10 in the power sweep last week. I got 8th in the power sweep last week with Evan Ingram getting me 2 points. Like, and I have Justin Fields on this team and me over here. Like, I'm supposed to be telling you guys what to do and I can't play, Cole Kmet on that team. Like, what am I doing? So, it's Evan Ingram is just like, he follows me around. And, once again, this week, he looks like a guy who makes sense. But when he has 4 points, you're going to be like, why did I play him? And then, of course, you have the running back at Neen, if I think I'm saying that correctly. ETN, as you see, I can't handle his name, but the rest of him is great. And he, there's nothing not to like. He really should be probably priced closer to Saquon or Henry. And so, he's an obvious play. I would assume he's going to be very popular. And he's probably going to be the way most people get exposure to this game. If you don't want to pay up for Mahomes, you don't want to pay up for Kels, you don't feel confident in any of the, Chiefs receivers, and you don't want to feel confident in any of the Jags receivers or Evan Ingram, obviously you can go ahead and just play him and get exposure to this game. So I think he's going to have a lot of ownership, but it doesn't really matter when he's mispriced. You kind of have to play him or, should play him at least somewhat. So I guess I look at this game from the perspective of the only guy I really think is going to have high ownership is at, let me give me his name one more time.
ETN.
There we go. I don't want to ETN. All right, I get it eventually. ETN. He's the only one I think is really going to have high ownership in this game. So it's an interesting game. Like, how often do you get to play people in the highest total game on a lousy week, really? And there's probably not going to be a ton of ownership. So I see myself stacking both passing games. I see myself playing a lot of Lawrence with mix and matching the Joneses and Kirks, bringing back Juju. And now I think just recently I saw Hardman is out officially. I think that just happened recently, right?
Yeah. So I got a unique take on that once we get there.
Okay. Yeah. So seeing that he is out, is interesting because that narrows them a little bit, but it's still, how much do you think Tony's going to play versus, do you think Sky Moore is going to come in there, or really even Justin Watson played as many snaps as Sky Moore last week. So who do you think is going to step in there for them?
So for me, it's Tony,
You think
right?
it's
And
Tony?
it's Tony all the way. And Tony, if I'm going at this game, I'm stacking Kelsey, Juju, Kelsey, Tony, right? If I'm going to do it from the Chiefs side, that's the route I want to go. If I'm going there, and here's why: on a week they didn't even get a full week of practice in. He just got traded there. The very first play of the game was schemed to him. The very first play of last game was schemed to Tony. Now, he didn't have a lot of targets. We know Kansas City's wide receivers are Russian roulette, right? Like, let's guess who's gonna break it this week, and you're trying to guess at it. You can't at this point. He's probably going to break the slate at some point. MVS will, but I just can't play him. I just can't. Out of their receivers, he's the one guy I just can't play anymore. He's on the list, right?
He's like Evan. He's your Evan Ingram. He's
oh my gosh, he's on my. I just can't play him. And a few years ago, right? He won me a lot of money, but I just right. I have that special soft spot in my heart, and I just can't. I can't play him anymore. The Chiefs went out and got Tony. He looked great on the routes he ran. He looked totally healthy. So my thing is, let's walk through range of outcomes with Tony when he was in New York. Could they have probably played him a week or two before they did? Sounds like they probably could have. And they knew they were shopping him. So let's not get him hurt. We know he's fragile, and let's get him traded and get him out of here.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs do not have a true wide receiver one. Now, Juju's playing well. Kelsey, we know, is their wide receiver one. They need an alpha one. And we've all seen Tony have the joystick, ability to be able to do it. So I really like some leverage here with him, especially if we start checking ownership and people are scared because of his target share last week. I'm going to probably jam him everywhere.
Yeah, I think you mean snap share, right? Because he only played 9. He only played 9% of the snaps. He basically
it was his first week,
but it was his first week. Yeah, and I'm really torn on how exactly to handle that because I think somebody is going to have a big day, and I think that it could easily be Tony. And then I look at Sky Moore and I say, well, you're the Stone Min, right? You're 3K,
right.
And Tony is 5K, which is really kind of a curious pricing in a way for a guy who has done nothing all year and played 9% of the snaps last week. Like 5K, like I would think he should be a lot cheaper than that. He's kind of priced like you have to pay for him, which will serve to keep his ownership down though. So if you're right and he hits, it's a great play. But then I look at Sky Moore and I see like a 3K guy there, and I'm just like, man, on a week where there's not a lot of value, like the guys you let me get in if I play Sky Moore. And it's like, what if he's the guy who takes over that 50-60% Hardman role with the, the speed plays and touchdown upside? It's like, then he's like a no-brainer. So that's why it's so interesting because it's hard to know who to play. And then as you alluded to with MSV, the other guy, I mean, he's only, I think 4,100.
Right.
Which he's considerably cheaper than Tony, and it's like, hey, whatever you feel about him, he's playing like 75% of the snaps. You can pretty much count on him being on the field, versus a guy who again played 9% of the snaps, in his second week, and he's 900 more expensive. So I think Tony is a guy that is certainly not going to be very owned because I think people are going to either say, let me roll the dice on Sky Moore for free, or let me go with MSV who's going to be on the field. So if Tony hits, I mean, Tony's the type of guy who could win you a lot of money if he hits, that's for sure.
Yeah. So MVS there, I'm gonna correct you there. It's MVS.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Because they're gonna roast. The Discord's good. They'll get on us about saying it wrong and keeping us in check. But yeah, right. So I think we're gonna need to mix and match, and it's MVS to me is that this is how I describe him to people at this point. So the cheesy but great replacements football movie with Keanu Reeves, right? Where Shane Falco's there.
Yeah.
He is Clifford Franklin to me, right? All
He
that's
kind of
like
is Clifford.
that is who MVS is
He
to
needs
me.
to stick him. We got to get him to stick
Right.
him.
We just need to stick like he can outrun everybody, he just can't catch the
Mhm.
ball. Right. So that's MVS to me. That's literally if you look, it's funny. If you go next time you're in Discord, look at my actual profile and look at what my background picture is. Click on it and see what my background picture
All
is.
right.
And it's literally because of this.
All
So
right.
you'll get a kick out of it next time you see it. So last week I worked up the courage and I played the Jets defense against Buffalo. While it wasn't had to have, man, it opened up a lot of things for me, and I'm glad I did. And I worked up there. So I'm thinking about doing that again here with the Jags, right? If I want to go on a lineup a different route, what's a way to get leverage in my eyes? The Jags D has been solid. We know Kansas City's going to throw the ball a ton, so there's going to be opportunity there for them. What are your thoughts about the Jaguars defense this week?
So I think the Jaguars defense is pretty brave this week. And remember, I'm the guy who I think on our last discussion told you that you could play Carolina's defense against Tampa Bay,
I did, by the way.
did you? Did you?
Did you? I actually tagged you. You didn't see it. I posted the lineup for you to see. I played them.
Oh, did
So
you? Did you? There you
yeah,
go. There you
I
go.
had a great week too, right? Because again, that opened up so many, right? It was you.
Yeah.
Like it really got me to like think about it more after our, after our cast. And I was like, man, he's gonna get me to do it. And I right like Saturday night, I just kept staring at it, right? Like I don't think I can click it, but right, I started putting them in, and I'm like, man, that's like $2,000 in salary, and look who I can add, and it worked out real well for me. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm that brave this week, but
So,
that's it'd be an interesting one.
so I had the Jets defense last week too on my main build actually, and I had the Panthers not on my main build, but all three of my teams that week. And this week, I think that the defense, if you want to go cheap, that's available is the Vikings, right? Because Josh Allen's probably not going to play. Now the problem is they're also going to be really popular. I hate taking a popular defense.
Yeah,
There's just so much variance in defense, and picking one that's popular. I try to never do it, but I feel like if I'm going to go bottom of the barrel this week, I'm probably just going to go there because just playing the Jaguars on the road in Arrowhead when their pass defense is pretty porous,
yeah.
and I think Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. I've thought that for a long time. I just don't really want to attack him with the defense. Now, that being said, I will say oftentimes I feel like in these high total games, people don't account for the fact that the defense might score.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it raises the chance the defense was scoring. But if I was going to play that angle, I'd probably go with the Kansas City defense and maybe not play as many offensive players and hope for, like a punt return TD and a defensive TD or something like that.
So you bring that up. So that was where I was going to go. You teed me up perfect for it, right? So that's the other side of the coin is now Hardman, their returners out. Do they go Pacheco? Do they go Sky Moore? Do they go Tony? They have three, rocket burners to be able to return that. And hey, if they pick Lawrence, get a pick six or a fumble return and, kickoff punt return, next thing you know, the leverage you're going to have on the field is unlike anybody else.
Yeah, and I like the idea of playing the Chiefs defense. I mean, they tend to be a tough place to play in Kansas City, and I think absolutely they could have a defensive touchdown or a punt return. And when you think, obviously that takes away points from the offense. So if that happens and you're not heavy on the offense and the offense has some chalky pieces, then it's, helps you a lot more there. So I think playing the defense is perfectly fine. If you want to play the Jaguars defense, go for it. I don't think I will this week. I am probably this week on this game. I'm probably going to treat this as an over stack game for me. I gave my two options as like an over or under stack. I make 20 lineups usually. I'm going to have probably, I want to say over half of those lineups, maybe just overstacking this game. I really like this game environment, but I'm not sure exactly who's going to get it. And the fact that I think I can play Mahomes and Kels and Juju and different combinations of Tony and Moore and let me make sure I'm right. MVS, right?
There you go.
Yeah. At low ownerships, I really think I'm going to do a lot of it. And I'm just going to hope that one of those lineups catches it right and, gets the points.
Yeah, it's the mix and match for me. So, right, if you're going to go that route, let's talk about a few of the other games here. We're going to do some deep thoughts with Pappy and talk about where do you see salary savings, right? So, say we go, right, we go Juju, Kelsey, Mahomes with a bring back of ETN. While he's not most expensive, he's not a cheap back. Where are you going to find salary savings on this slate this week for
Yeah,
yourself?
and here's the so I've been playing with that exact build right there, and it's interesting because if you try to put another of the two obvious running backs like Saquon or Henry in that build, you really can't. It's just too difficult to afford. So if you go down to the next tier of guys, you start looking at someone like Pierce. Probably going to be the most played running back on the slate. Of course, he should be priced a little bit higher, which is why, but I don't know if I love him at where his ownership's going to be and what I think his range of outcomes are. And so then, if you want to look, who can I put in a second running back slot here that's cheap? And oh, heaven help me for saying this, not Najee Harris. And now let me,
Oh, okay. Here we go. Here
heaven
we
help me,
go.
heaven help me for this. I really like the Steelers this week. From a betting standpoint, just I think they're going to win the game. TJ Watt is supposed to come back this week. He's an enormous, difference on that defense. They're also supposed to get Levi Wallace back. As a person who's in the local Pittsburgh market and a big Steelers fan, those additions are huge for that defense. They're also coming out of a bye, and they got rid of Claypool, who was supposedly kind of a cancer in the locker room. And the other thing is they're probably a little just naturally undervalued right now because their last 4 games were against incredibly stiff competition. 3 of them were on the road. And so there's a lot of reasons to think right now that the Steelers are probably a little undervalued to be a home dog against really not a super formidable Saints team. So I think the Steelers are going to do well in that game. And I've been, listening to the local pundits, trying my hardest, being in the market to figure out, is there a lot of credence to if Warren is going to take a lot of snaps from Henry? I don't. Like, if you just read the listen to it or listen to what they're saying, it would seem like it. I'm just going to tell you from a long time of watching Mike Tomlin that, and I'm not basing this on anything other than gut feel, is that I could see him trying to get Najee in the end zone a couple of times to say to everybody, like, look, Najee's fine. Standard's the standard. We're not going to change anything, and get Najee. I could see it. I really could. I think that is more Tomlin than I'm going to make a change coming out of the bye and go with Warren. Just my personal opinion on Tomlin, based on nothing other than feel.
Tomlin knows how bad their offensive line is, and he
He
knows how
does.
good Najee is. Has Najee not looked amazing? I think he's looked okay considering what he's running behind. Like he can't get away from anybody because they're tackling him as soon as he hits a hole. Like there's no holes there.
Yeah. The whole offense has been bad. And again, you got to remember they made a quarterback change going into a really rough stretch where they played 4 of the best defenses in the league, really, other than the Dolphins. There was 3 of the best defenses, the Bills, the Eagles, and the Bucks. And the Dolphins are still an aggressive defense. And again, 3 of those games were on the road too. So not the best time to be making a quarterback change to a rookie, right? And now they've had a bye week. They're much weaker opponent that's injured at home. I just think that they are a little bit undervalued right now. And so if you think that they might win that game and you think, how are they going to win that game? You start to think Najee, who is 5,500, probably the cheapest he's been since his rookie year, maybe ever. I didn't look, but maybe ever.
Right.
Could he fall into the end zone twice? Like, yeah, he could. And you start to think, well, he's probably going to have relatively low ownership. And then does he pair well with the Steelers defense, right? That's probably going to have under 10% ownership with TJ Watt back. Like, yeah, he does. And you start to look at some of those builds where you have him and you can make a reasonable team with some of the other 5K receivers that are out there. Guys like Judy or Mooney or Kirk, even if you want to keep going, put another guy on that team, or if you want to go cheaper, you can go with some of the other guys in this game, even if you want. But you can make a reasonable receiver set, with the mid-priced guys in those builds, maybe one cheap guy. And really the question you end up asking yourself when you look at these builds is like, do I believe in Najee? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, do I think he's gonna come out and be able to, pay off his salary, get 20 points at least? I'm leaning towards I believe in it. Like when I look at the rest of the slate and I look at the rest of the risks that I'd have to take, I feel like that risk might be the one I end up taking. So
I like the bold take there, especially after we saw, everybody's been off Mixon and right, Mixon comes out and he has in his range of outcomes and his skill set ability, he has the ability to break a slate. He has the ability to rush for 120 yards, catch for 40, get 2-3 touchdowns. That is in Najee's range of outcomes at his ceiling. We haven't seen it because as we see every single year in the NFL, the teams with great offensive lines tend to do very, very well. And I think the best example of that this year is not the Eagles because the Eagles are loaded with talent everywhere. I think the best example of that is the Cleveland Browns.
mhm.
And the Cleveland Browns have the second best offensive line in the NFL and two really good running backs. And it is made up for having Jacoby Brissett at quarterback this year. So I think the Steelers need to realize that. But at the same time, the Chiefs or the Saints defense isn't what it once was. This isn't the mighty all crushing Saints D. And I like the bold take there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if I have the guts to do it. I mean, I have rosters right now where it's just that's the question. Like, I really like the roster, but do I want to trust Najee to get it done,
Ooh.
or am I going to feel like a fool when Warren comes out and replaces them? But we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear how the news goes with that. So let's talk about that game a little bit more. We were talking about these two games in particular before we started the podcast with a way to get some exposure to this game on the betting side. And you had a really good thought process here, and I'm going to go ahead and let you share it.
Oh yeah, so just the two games we've been talking about. I really love teasing these two games this week. Depending on what you can get the Chiefs at, -9 or -9.5. You can do a 6.5 or 7 point teaser. Make sure you get it through the three, down to 2.5 or 2. And then you can take it the other way on the Steelers. So they're +1.5 right now. So you're getting it through the 7. So get it to 8.5 or 8. And you can get that at -130 or -140 right now, depending what site you're betting on, and if you're doing 6.5 or 7. But as long as you're getting it through the 3 and getting it up through the 7, up to the 8, anytime you can move through those numbers with a teaser, it's usually a good bet. And I personally think the Steelers are going to do well, so I think them +8 or 8.5 looks pretty good. And I think that the Chiefs are going to win, and I think them -2 or 2.5 is probably feels pretty good to me too. So at -130 or -140, I feel like that's a bet I like a lot. I'll probably have a relatively significant bet on that myself this week. So anybody else who wants to like it, fire away with me.
All right, we'll have to look at that next week when we're coming through. For me, something we're looking at and we're excited about on the game is we think they've mispriced Justin Fields rushing prop again. Chicago has figured out how to use him. Do I know that it's sustainable like this forever? I don't think it is, but they figured out that he has the Lamar skill set, that he's not great at making those pocket throws. We needed him to get out. We need to have design runs, and his rushing prop should probably be 11.5, and it's only 9.5. It only went up 1 this week, and he smashed it every single week. We actually announced that for our prop subs earlier today, so I don't mind once this goes up being able to talk about it a little bit and let him go see him. But we were looking at that number, and I think we'll see after this game. I think we're going to see minimum 10.5, if not 11.5 at his prop moving forward, just because that offense has figured out that's how they have to use him.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I hadn't looked at those problems. That makes a lot of sense, though. I don't know like how all of a sudden they just decided to start playing like early Lamar Jackson, or why it took them this long to do it, but that is really what they're doing. I mean, a lot of early Lamar Jackson stuff, which is effective, especially with that type of quarterback who has to create threat with his legs. I don't know why they didn't do it earlier, but good for them. And I agree with you. I think you're right that it's just going to take the market a little time to catch up. So it's probably the time to take advantage of it.
Totally agree. Well, we'll look forward to coming back next week and seeing if Papy had the guts to run Najee. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking. I want to know beforehand. So I'll ping you on Sunday and see how your lineups look.
All right. I'll let you know.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good week, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you, man.